Here we are, the Data Protection Breakfast Club with Sonia Zeledon, Chief Compliance Counsel at the Hershey Company. Chocolate, go.
A lot of chocolate talk. I've known her a long time. We're from the same hometown. She broke a lot of barriers, Andy, man, like MIT grad, super math whiz, then went to law school. She's got a super interesting Keanu's here.
Look at her arc, her career arc. Every move breaks a barrier. It's like Skadden and White and Case to Living Social, the startup.
Yes.
People don't go from White and Case to startups very often. Nobody.
Exactly.
And now
she's done some dope things, man.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and one more, what else? She's also super involved in the Hispanic legal community, Hispanic Latino legal community. She's part of the Hispanic National Bar Association in leadership roles, and one of my allies and friends there. She's a huge philanthropist. She flips houses for fun. She's just involved in so many things. I can't keep up. Her Instagram, you and I are Instagram friends, and I'm always up to something. Hers is mine 10x. She's always up to something productive. I'm sometimes off to these goofy tangents. She don't waste a lot of time. She's always doing cool things. She's a mom, single mom, raising 2 kids. She's got it all happening at once, and she does it, and she does it at a high level.
Good for her. Good for her for just consistently tackling so many things. You could tell when we talked to her, she just loves learning and loves the fact that companies are going to throw new things at her, and we talk about that a lot. But there's yet another example of someone that thrives on that stuff, and awesome.
Yeah, she's got GC written all over her. She's going to be the GC of a large company soon. I mean, I'm confident about this. So we'll probably bring her back, and she'll be a super boss lady somewhere. Super interesting.
Yeah.
But let's do it, man.
All right. Here we are.
We're
here. Data Protection Breakfast Club with Sonia Zeledon. You are Chief Counsel, Compliance Privacy International at the Hershey's Company. Yes. All right. I got all
chocolatier vibes.
Chocolate.
But you work remote, right?
100%. Yep.
So where's home?
Miami.
I just wanted to hear that. Miami gang.
The 305.
Yeah. This is my Miami sister right here. So I love that vibe. How'd you end up? Let's just jump in. How'd you end up at Hershey? First of all, I hear Hershey and Hershey's. How do I say this correctly?
Hershey. Well, Hershey's, either one. They're branded. Both of them are branded. So
they're both real? Okay, good. Because sometimes I hear people say a Hershey kiss, and I hear Hershey's kiss. And I'm like, first of all, why are there so many kisses? And then second of all, I just want to say it right. So I guess it doesn't matter. How do you get into the chocolate business?
I was recruited. So the former GC I knew, and he wanted someone to build programs. So I built the privacy and the compliance program for a US based company that was kind of in its infancy. And I had built the programs at Nokia, and it seemed like a cool opportunity. And Nokia, it's a great company. It's telecommunications, but I get bored easily. So I needed to try something new.
Okay. This is important. This took a turn of great importance. Snake. Remember the game Snake? Do we not remember how to play Snake? Are you guys that old? You never played Snake on the old Nokia phones?
Oh no. People talk about it, but I have no memory of it.
What is wrong with you guys? Oh my God, Snake. That's the most sophisticated video game of all time that is not sophisticated at all. But on those old little Nokias, there was one game, and it was Snake. I'm sad. Andy, your look of shock is really, I'm sad.
I never had it.
Snake is a whole thing, man. You guys are.
I don't remember.
You should.
I had a Nokia phone, but I don't remember.
You should have taken credit for Snake. I'm sad about this. This makes me sad. Anyway, all right, cool. So you did the Nokia stuff, high tech, obviously. huge data engine.
Well, we would argue with the tech, the real tech, right?
Yeah, right. Like actual, like, yeah, exactly. Like real infra tech, like real stuff. And then you come to the chocolate place, and then, so talk to me about like the data drama at the chocolate place. I'm sure there's a lot. Like,
well, you know, I was coming from a B2B company, right? So no direct to consumers, nothing like that. And I come to Hershey in October of 2019, right before the pandemic, as they're trying to accelerate their direct to consumer digital commerce, right? And the idea was to kind of get that built out in 2022. And then the pandemic hit, right? And then it's like, we got to do it now. So it was really interesting because it's a US company. So their position on privacy is quite different than where I was coming from, which was Nokia. And so that was kind of interesting. And then having to do that and build a program in the middle of that pandemic as we're accelerating direct to consumer digital with a team of 2. That was not a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds intense. And then I'm guessing, and this isn't a criticism of Hershey, it's just because you got Hershey. I don't think of Hershey and think, oh, big tech company, right? Do you have to like push up against like non-tech culture or background? Like, is there, I work at Facebook. There's a everyday appreciation for the like trials and tribulations of running a tech company. It is a tech company. And so everybody thinks of everything in the course of like data use, data privacy use case. Like, this is everybody's language. I'm going to guess that's not the language of a company like Hershey, right? And so how do you navigate all of these issues that, just like Facebook, Hershey has to confront when that shorthand is not there? I think she froze. She's frozen.
For the population.
You froze for a second. You froze.
I did. Well, you froze.
Oh, we froze. The internet is crashing like it was yesterday because my whole.
Oh, the internet crashed.
Yeah. So you're back. So how do you do it? How do you do the shorthand?
I did it. It was like grassroots. It was a grassroots campaign because they didn't think privacy was an issue. You know, it's a US company. We sell chocolate.
Yeah.
What could be problematic? You know, they took the position, or we were taking the position, that we weren't really selling any data. It was more, trying to check the boxes to comply with whatever it is that we need to comply with. And it was a grassroots campaign, right? What's our philosophy? What's our foundation? Soup to nuts. You got to do front end and back end. You got to do
I hate the internet, Andy. I'm frozen. Are you, I think it's her end. This is what I'm gonna guess.
Me?
Yeah, I think it's you, because Andy and I just kept chit chatting. This is that Miami internet.
No, maybe. Let me see. I have like 3 internet connections. Let me try another one.
It's the Miami internet.
It's the Miami internet. It's being held up by like a couple sketchy guys in the back corner of some like cruise ship. I can say this. This is where I'm from. like the entire Miami internet infrastructure is like at the back of Versailles in a parking garage somewhere. I'm pretty confident about this.
I was there in January, and the internet worked fine.
Thank you, Andy, for ruining my fun joke. Oh man. Oh, Sonia, I feel like you're moving and you're digital and you're back. So grassroots to get the Hershey folks online. How much like teaching do you have to do? I feel like there's probably a lot of that happening.
Constantly.
Yeah, right. And who are like my biggest curiosity, right? In like a super non-tech company that has a lot of high tech stakes, meaning there's a lot of privacy implications to what you do. Like, how do you bring people on? I mean, I get it, like grassroots teach. How do you even get them to listen?
You talk their language, right? If you look at Hershey, it's a very purpose-driven company, right? It's all about your purpose and philanthropy and doing the right thing, and really big on the human rights and child labor and all that. And you kind of fold it into that type of space, right? We don't want to be the ones, being caught, selling data without consent, or not giving, the right parameters for people or consumers and all that, right? The brand reputation. That's how I try to spin it anyway.
No, that makes sense. And so
at least, I mean, it wasn't as difficult because the company is purpose driven, right? So they're really all about doing the right thing. But when when the rubber hits the road and like, well, doing the right thing, it's, consent and GDPR like language and all that kind of stuff. They're like, whoa, wait.
See the freeze? Andy, are you frozen?
Yeah, not me.
Yeah, I think it's her internet. See, it's the Miami internet, man. We're gonna have to do a blooper reel on this one. I like this. You keep freezing and
it's you guys, because I have been on Zoom calls since 7 a.m. today. And the only time I'm frozen.
Hey, I don't want to edit any of this out, by the way. I want it all there.
Right? It's 7 a.m. So it's all you two. It's not me.
Well, the truth is,
I'm gonna switch internet. Hold on.
But yesterday, Andy, I was not having problems, but I was hearing about like all this East Coast internet outage shit. So maybe some of that's carrying over.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I honestly don't know.
I'm curious I'm curious, like when you said Hershey's purpose-driven company, you kind of hear that phrase sometimes. Like, is that baked into the DNA of the company forever, or is that something that's been driven lately by management team, or like how does that happen?
No, this has been forever. So it's 125 years old, right? Founded by Milton Hershey, whose entire purpose was to generate money to feed his community and to build a school for orphans, right? So to this day, every purchase that you make of a Hershey product goes to fund the Milton Hershey School. Nobody knows it. They don't, I mean, you can Google it, but they don't advertise it. It's not the fad. It's not something that they put it on the wrappers or anything, because it's really built into the foundation of the company. So it's been around even before it was popular. So it's crazy. I've never been at a company like this where every meeting, every discussion revolves around purpose. Is this driver purpose? Is this, moments of goodness they talk about, and they really, really believe it. So
I wonder if Milton Hershey thought, I wonder if he thought that, 125 years later, there'd be like a Cuban woman running his data protection program. Like think about how much the company has evolved, right? Like that to me is amazing. Like the idea of you as a person at Hershey probably could not have existed. Not your job didn't exist. Like you as a contributor, I don't think Hershey was full of like women executives. 125. That's not a knock to Hershey. It's just the way that the world ran. And so,
it's run by a female, right? The CEO is a female.
Yeah.
Like think about how amazing this is. Now you've got women in charge, women of color in charge, and like I think that is like a testament to a company's willingness to like, I don't even know what the right word is, but grow and change as society gets better.
Yeah, I mean, they try. It's still central Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's hard to retain talent, but they really try.
Well, I like the idea of doing remote because that's probably how they were able to get you involved. Because
you mentioned something interesting to just quickly come back to. You mentioned like in the beginning, sort of people may not think of this company as a tech company, but interestingly, when we discussed having Sonia on, one of the first things that came to my mind is when I was growing up in Baltimore, we went to Hershey Park a lot. It's only an hour from Baltimore. And now I haven't been there in so many years, but now I think to myself, well, when I think about amusement parks and theme parks, I think about apps and I think about technology driving those. And I think about marketing and I think about like all of those things. So then my head naturally just goes, of course, there's a lot going on inside a company like that. And so was that the kind of thing that sort of hooked you and got you intrigued, or was it something else?
I like building stuff, right? So I like building programs, and that's what hooked me. The fact that we were starting it from scratch. There was nothing, and it needed to be built. And I liked my boss, right? I like Damien guess he left in December, but he was an African-American GC. I wanted to work for him. I went to work with him. And building the program sounded really exciting. And a moment in time for Hershey where they were accelerating, right, the direct to consumer situation and expanding internationally, right? So I can say that now because it's already public, but there's a big expansion in Europe, in Germany, and other parts of the world, and I like that kind of stuff. So, and the real purpose-driven company really attracted me to it.
I like this. I didn't know this about Hershey at all. Is like this kind of like purpose-driven, like philanthropic DNA. I loved that about Salesforce, and it was one of the reasons I went there, right? Like the same thing. Like, I mean, Salesforce, every meeting is about something related to broader goals and benefit. And I don't mean benefits for employees. I mean like the world, right? Like just completely enthralled, like it's hypnotizing because I loved it. I thought it was great. Facebook has some of that. I mean, Facebook is also fighting 100 fronts for a million reasons, but Facebook also has a lot of that DNA internally. It's like how, one of the things, it's strange because you work at a company that I think has such a feel-good vibe to it, right? And obviously Facebook has this there's this tentativeness between the public and Facebook right now, right? And I think part of making that better is like showing our people off. I think because there's a lot of really good people at Facebook doing really great work to make the world better, right? Like thousands of people. And so like showcasing that is important. One of the ways that I think Hershey, at least as you've explained it, does that is very quietly and humbly, because I didn't know these things about Hershey. And so there's probably some.
I work a lot with the government relations team, and we're always trying. That there should be a press release. We should talk about that. We have schools and this internet sucks.
No, you're good. You're good.
And it's a Nokia HUD, huh?
You see, it's the Nokia trash. You see this? I'm just being a jerk. Okay, I want to switch gears completely because I want to talk about dope stuff. When were you at MIT?
What do you mean?
What were the years you went to school?
99, around that period of time.
What was like the male to female population at that school at the time?
Horrific. So I can tell you that it was maybe 70-30. I'm really proud of what they've done, that they've increased the female population or significantly. But I remember, I don't know, Andy, if you've been into the Infinity Corridor, that really long corridor. And there was one bathroom for women, one women's bathroom. And it was in the other end of the Infinity Corridor. And there were at least 15 male bathrooms between that whole thing. It was, so that was really striking and you would never forget that you were always the only one maybe in a class of stuff like that. But I mean, maybe like 4 years ago, they actually got parity. They're like 50-50, 51-49 or something.
So, okay. So if now they've kind of figured out how to make it, I don't want to use the word equal, but like closer to well represented. And then you were there in the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's like a 20-year journey to just get women up to like, I don't know, just up to, I don't know what the right word is, but like bring the women student population up to standard or whatever it is. Why does it take so long to do this? Like, I don't understand why. And I'm sure MIT worked really aggressive, and it's not the only school that has these problems, but I ask in the context of like STEM, right? Like this is such an it's like the most important, like higher education, like initiative on earth, right? Is to get people to study STEM because it's the way that not only are they going to be employed, but we're going to continue to like innovate and make the world better. I just don't understand why there's so many, like why can't universities do an even better job at this? I don't understand. I don't get it. I blame my school too. Like it's every school, but like, I just don't understand why it's taken 20 years to get it to 50-50. What are the barriers?
Oh, you really want me to go there? Okay.
Yeah. What are the barriers? Yeah.
I think it starts in elementary school, right? It starts in, the discrimination of women, the fact that they teach math and science is geared towards men. Things, there's stats that show that the way girls learn, it's slightly different than boys. Boys are louder, more boisterous, they're more opinionated, they get more advancement in schools, they get more opportunities. And that kind of, all the way through high school and then college, right? They lose interest. Girls lose interest in high school in the math and the sciences.
It's interesting you talk about the different ways boys and girls learn. I think there's differences between men and women work, and a lot of it is also curated towards amplifying men's strengths and marking those as promotable or advanceable versus women. So I think some of this stuff bleeds into corporate too. I mean, of course it does, but in ways that maybe we don't understand. Some of the smartest, most brilliant people I've met along my career, by leagues, are women, and all of them have some story about that bathroom or things I never had to think about as a student or as an employee, and I hate that. I hate that, and I don't know how we fix this. I don't know. Anyway, super frustrating.
What Sonia? What was your experience like? I mean, you went to 2 law firms that I think most people would consider not bastions of growth for empowerment of female attorneys. So I'm hoping that's changed over time, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything bad about Skadden because I loved Skadden, right? It made me the lawyer who I am. It gave me the opportunity to live abroad, right? I lived in Germany for 2 years. With Skadden, I became the person that I am. However, I was the only Latina in their DC office of 1,100 lawyers. I was maybe one of, we had a team of 150 doing this all for food, investigation. I was maybe the 2 women and a sea of men. There were maybe 2 partners that were females that kind of had good equity and were trailblazers. So, they had a lot of work to do, and the implicit bias and all that kind of stuff was there. But so does Solomon, so does Cravath, so all these top law firms. But, there's not enough of us out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think there's Andy, to your specific question, I think law firms have, especially those big white shoe law firms, have 2 really complicated challenges. They're good old boy clubs. By their nature, they were built that way. That is how it was. You got some relationships with some rich people and they hire you, and then the firm grows. That's how these firms started. And that was a business model, right? And in order to have those relationships, you were almost always 100 years ago, a white male. That is overwhelmingly true. And a lot of that legacy just still bleeds into current firm culture. I do think firms are making lots of investments, though. I see it, I hear it. We push for it, as in-house lawyers, when we engage. I only I have rules, I won't work with an outside firm that doesn't have a woman partner involved or female associates or people of color. I lay that out very early, and I'm just not going to do it. And I don't need their names on a list. I need them doing the work and getting credit for it, And so, a Latin man pushing for that in-house 15 years ago is not. It's not realistic. And a Latin woman in charge of an entire legal department at a major corporation, and it's also not a reality 15 years ago or 20 years ago, right? We didn't have the power to influence that way. I think the other way, and this came up at work yesterday, and so I'm interested to hear what you think about this. It's easy for me to apply pressure on the outside firms. Internal pressure, though, is another thing I think we need to do, right? To make the companies also live up to the demands the companies we work for live up to the demands that we make of the firms that we work with. How do you do you do any of that growth work yourself inside of Hershey, or how does that look?
Not so much at Hershey, because they're actually pretty committed to increasing the numbers. I mean, I've never worked at a more diverse legal department as I do now, right? I think, let me count. I think I have 7 Black women. I think 2 Latinos, which is the most I've ever seen. So internally, there's no issue. Externally, though, there's a problem because we don't hire just big diverse firms. We do hire white shoe firms all the time. which that's not a problem necessarily, but it doesn't increase diversity, and trying to work on that a little bit. But I understand that Hershey is not the norm, right, compared to other friends and stuff in companies. So from that perspective, it's good.
Andy, how about at Alice? Like, it's so small. Like, how do you think about the and obviously it's growing. Yeah. How do you think about, as you start to scale and you go from like a core leadership team to now like now I think you guys are where are you at now, up to like 150, right? Something like that. Yeah. Like when you get to 300, which is going to happen very soon, and then 600 or whatever, how do you think from where you're perched, right? Like GC, like how do you influence making sure that growth is fair? I'm meaning is well represented by people of all types.
It's not, I mean, luckily, Alice, when I joined, had that already going. So
nice.
There are some people, starting with the CEO, that focus heavily on what is Alice doing to promote people to bring diverse people into the business, to have diversity, equity, and inclusion as an open conversation that's happening, a team that's focused on it. I mean, we have a lot of people that are driving that forward in the company already when I joined. So that was really fortunate. All I needed to really do was say, this is something that I care about, and I'm here to do whatever it is that I can help too. And that's a really easy place for me to be able to be in, because then I can just contribute. And I think as a white man, you have to be careful with how you're contributing to the conversation, right? Like you can't bulldoze the conversation. You have to participate in the conversation, and you have to be, and that's our CEO too. And I think one of the things that's helpful is Alice's business itself is based on being personal. It's B2B personal gifting using personal data. But one element of what we do is empowering the people that are getting gifts with the power of choice to pick a donation or to do something else. So there's what's baked into our DNA as a company is the idea of diversity within the product itself. So we just come from a very lucky angle with that company. And I do have experience with other companies, small and large, where like it's a slog to try to change people's minds, to try to get them on board. At Alice, it's been very simple in a lot of ways. Just we recently had a leadership team discussion about, well, are we requiring bachelor degrees for all of our roles? Some roles. We came to decision very fast as a leadership team that that's not going to be a requirement. So it's like, look, maybe it's a requirement if I'm hiring a lawyer. Like somebody has to go to law school and they have to be a lawyer. But
the old accountant with no education.
Right. So like obviously there are some roles where you're going to say that's not necessarily the person we're going to hire, but that's not going to be the case across the board for us. And that I just think we need to be, companies like ours can be nimble enough to do that decision very fast. And it felt easy at Alice. It doesn't feel easy at every company.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask one more kind of like human oriented question, but I'm going to tie it to privacy here. I think, Sonia, you might be the first guest we have whose company, maybe I'm wrong, but Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, that has a massive sort of like, I don't know if the right word is manufacturing industrial capacity, but you guys make stuff, billions of things, right? Like it's food, but like you guys are processing all of these materials into food. Coronavirus is, the pandemic, right? Like clearly has to have affected like how you guys make candy and make food, right? Insofar as like protecting your staff and employees and all of your logistics infrastructure, which I'm sure is massive. How do you run the business in the pandemic and also like take care of people's privacy insofar as like their medical status based on like coming to work? Like, how are you tackling those problems?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was my life between March and June of last year. So, because we have manufacturing facilities in Malaysia, China, in the US, right? That we closed in India by government mandated, but I think maybe only for 2 weeks. For the rest of the time, all of our manufacturing facilities remained open. So we had to pivot, and we were working with labor and employment, health and safety, to try to figure out what to do to keep the factories open, right? Because we're essential business, because chocolate, right? Everybody needs to eat it. And no, in all reality, that was a whole other situation, because you had to lobby at the state and federal level to remain an essential business and remain open.
Yeah.
But it was, we had to pivot and think about, okay, do we do health disclosure, or do we do contact tracing? Do we not do that? Do we do the thermal scanners? Do we do the things? Where do we keep the data? Do we keep the data? And those kind of discussions. And like in Malaysia, right, we had to keep the data. We had to turn it over to the government. Where they had to do contract tracing. There was all these different parameters. So we went country by country, deciding what we had to do, what we should do, and what we were comfortable doing. So in the US, I didn't feel comfortable keeping the data in any server. So we just take temperature, go through the screen, and the story. And in other countries, we kept the data. And it was just one of those risk things. But it was really fun, because, you had to do something different. I had to learn, OSHA, OSHA, ADA, all those kind of requirements. What can and can't we ask? What can and can't we keep? And now we're pivoting, and we're trying to decide, do we vaccinate? Do we not vaccinate? Do we mandate it? Do we not mandate it? And if we do, who's going to keep that data? Are we going to require people to show us proof of vaccination? And then what? What are we going to do with that stuff? And
massive.
Interesting.
I mean, it's like a massive
thousands of people.
It's a massive challenge. And I know we joke about, like, whether Hershey's is essential or not in chocolate, but I gotta tell you, and this is true, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. One of my best, like one of the most comforting channels for me during the pandemic is food. I learned how to grill, I learned how to do all sorts of things. But chocolate played a major role in my mood, because I gave myself a treat, and I love a bunch of different things, but I like the little mini Hershey's almond bars, like the really, really small ones. And I have bags and bags of these things in my house, and I would just eat one every night just to feel good, because every day you'd watch the news and the world was caving in all around you, and it's like, just feels good to give yourself a treat. So as like silly as that might sound, I think it's really real. Like my dad, I'll tell you a story about my dad. My dad is an old Cuban guy who lives in Miami. He has left his house in the last year. I don't know. He goes to the supermarket, the clinic, and his little job, which is a little shop that he works in by himself. So he's been alone for a year now, alone. And we FaceTime or WhatsApp video chat like at night, right? The man is eating a Hershey's Kiss every time I talk to him. This is a true story. It's a true story. He keeps a little bowl.
Just one?
No, he's eating Hershey's Kisses as we talk. He's eating Hershey's Kisses as we talk. He keeps a little bowl next to his little sofa table or whatever that thing is. And
I'm partial to these.
Oh, that's your vibe? I'm not mad at that vibe either. I love Jolly Ranchers. That was one of my favorite candies as a kid. But like these little things, and I picked that. I guess the reason I tell my dad's story is because I picked up the same little habit, if that, I don't know if that's the right word, but like the same little routine where just at night, just a little piece of chocolate makes me feel good.
Yeah, for me, it's the Twizzlers or the Reese's Cups. Those are great.
Love me some
But
Reese's.
I like in our episode summary where Sonia was like, "Have you tried Take 5?"
You?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh my God, that stuff is addictive. It's the best candy bar on earth.
I haven't tried it. I'm classic. I'm like old school traditional. I like old school.
Try Take 5.
I gotta try it. Well, thanks for hanging out with us,
But
friends.
the number one seller.
Yeah, I'm super down to try it. Send me a link or something. I'll buy a bunch of this shit. But I'm down. Thanks for hanging out with us. Sorry for some of the technical crap. We'll figure out how to edit that and make it right.
Sounds
Last
great.
word? Anybody? Andy? Sonia?
Buy chocolate.
Word? Yeah, buy chocolate.
Truer words have never been spoken.
To the point. Thanks, my friend.
See ya.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.